Let's share desktop one. Okay, hello teacher. My name is Quân. I am from PG48, and this is the video for my assignment regarding the action research proposal. Okay, so research proposal. First of all, well, a little bit on the context first, because at first the context is that this is just something that I talked about with my friends when we talk shop no, when we had lunch together. Is that somehow students in Vietnam, they got direct admission to high schools from secondary school if they have IELTS. And then I started to link it with my real life situations. Is that there is a sudden influx of students, especially young students from secondary school, that they are flooding into my IELTS class from all levels. And then, I didn't really believe them at first when they said that students get direct admission. But then I started to look up for information, and then it is actually real. This is an official governmental document from 2024, I believe. Here, it said that students get to tuyển thẳng if they actually have, okay, I am sorry, if they actually have, what is it? If they have IELTS 6.0. Yeah. And then I was really surprised. Okay, so after that, when we met for the first time, and then you said that there's this assignment on action research. I don't know what an action research is, but I started my draft from like day one. The first draft was that uh, questioning the cognitive readiness for students, for secondary school students in terms of the IELTS test. But then later on, when I actually learned what an action research is, that is not an action research. So I had to scratch that, and I had to delete my first four drafts to start my real one. And that's when we come here. My real draft is that using semantic mapping to improve secondary school students' ability to identify the main ideas in mixed stage reading classes. Well, this is not my final draft. This is like my, I don't know, eighth or 10th draft already. It went through a lot of trial and errors. Okay, so first of all, I want to explain why like students are studying in my class, why these students even appear in my class. It is because of these policies that the students and that parents actually are encouraged to take their secondary school students and force them to study IELTS. And that's where the problem begins. The thing is that the students in my class, especially those young ones, they really struggle when they read. They're really stressed in class because when they see around and like a lot of guys are older than them, and they're really scared and they're really anxious, and their reading always have a problem. But the problem mainly lies in the main ideas part. Is that they don't really do matching heading really well, and the problem is that I don't think they actually understand what they're reading, but they are more or less like skimming and scanning for keywords. Yeah. Okay. So, for the problem statement, I actually know that, okay, so maybe the problem doesn't really lie with the vocabulary. It's not that they don't have vocabulary. I do teach them vocabulary, and the vocabulary in the reading text that I choose for my classes are not really that difficult. The problem is that they don't actually get what the main idea is. And that's where I also find documents relating to this. Okay. The first document I found is the Septia file. Here. Nene Neneng Septia and others and colleagues. First of all, there is like statistical evidence that students struggle. As we can see here, have 71% of students, they have difficulties in item number one. But what is item number one? It is something that makes them like not a because they don't really understand what's the difference between a main idea and an explaining sentence. That's one. Later on, here, is that, as you can see here, is that 73, 53% students have main ideas with like reading comprehension. And that's when the evidence showed me that, oh, so this is a documented and researched problem and not just a problem in like my own class. Oh, okay. Okay. So later on, when I actually read more, and then I found this file from uh, Uizal and Pala, because I tried to look for students having problems with main ideas, and then I found this file. However, this file reveals something really interesting for me. Is that uh okay, no, this is something I highlight before, or this doesn't really matter. Here, they also found out that students have difficulty in really finding main ideas. And this file is even closer to me because like these are actually secondary school students, which is really good. However, there's also another factor that that they showed here. Here, students said, okay, the students said that there are two main variables. First of all, it's text-based, which is something that we already covered. Like they also say that students don't know what a main idea is, or like what an event, a topic, and summary is. So they don't really know what a main idea is. However, there's also another one, which is an effective factor. Is that students have, where is it? Um, here, effective factors. Is that it makes students have like, I don't know, like problems with feelings, I believe. Is that here they have fear, anxiety, and stress, and this also has a negative effect on their reading performance. And that's when I conclude that, okay, I need to focus on two things. First of all, it's reading strategy. And second of all, is anxiety and management. Those two things. Those two. Okay. So that's my problem. So I need a solution. So when looking at the solution, I did not find Carell first. I actually find these people first, which is Wonder for real. I am way too familiar with this file now. They do mention, okay, let's go back to the first one first, is that here they talk about something called explicit strategy instruction. Is that you need to teach students the strategy in order for them to know how to use it and become more effective readers. However, there is this one framework that keeps being sort of like tossed around in the file, which is Kala. This is very weird for me because I don't know what Kala is. But this file led me down a rabbit hole for me to find a Chameau file, which is this one, the color model. Here they talk about how do I say it? They talk about strategy instructions. There's a few things here, but I mostly look towards cognitive strategies. Okay. And when it comes to cognitive strategies, and they have this thing called the think, like students think aloud. They don't really explicitly mention it here, but thinking aloud is something that I will use later on in my solutions part. But they do talk about something that is here, grouping and imagery. I don't really find they talk a lot about imagery, but imagery is talked about in okay, this is not related. Yeah, this is just the color sequence that I'll use later on. It doesn't matter right now. Uh, Here, imagery. They do mention it here. Yeah, grouping, classifying words, terminology, terminology according to their attributes. So like we group similar items, but there's also like visual images. So these tools are really very important because also in the window file, they mention something called semantic mapping and grouping. And they go together. However, when I look forward, when I look into semantic mapping, I don't see that it's really related to me, and it's even not like suitable because semantic mapping means that you map like words into a mind map so that students have connection with the words. But I don't need them to understand the words right now. I need them to understand the main ideas. So that's when I need to have an adaptation. Hmm. Okay, so my solution looks something like this. Yeah, they need to draw like this, like this map to see like what are the in how the informations connect and the linking words and all stuff like that. So, and that's how they can know what the main idea is and what like the connecting sentence are. This is just a basic map that I draw, but I think this will be really effective for my students. However, I do need to be very clear on my theoretical framework. And after some digging, I also found Carell and her schema theory. Thing is, this is not the first file that I found. I actually found this second one talking about like in this old file, she doesn't mention schema theory. She just mentioned it's like as like prior knowledge, and she called it like context. Okay. Oh, she also talked something about like here. Yeah, I actually kind of forgot about the. Oh, I really forget, but like I add on to my problem part because like she also said that students are okay. ESL readers, they are linguistically bound to a text, and they read in like a bottom up process and not they don't usually use a top down process. So later on, I found this more recent file, just a little bit. And this is where she used more friendly terms like word bound, and then she used like yeah, bottom up processing and top down processing. And this is also my goal. I want to move my students from like bottom up to like top down, so that they don't just like look for vocabulary, but they actually look on a more predictive standpoint and trying to see what the author actually means is what I'm trying to say. That is just on the schema theory, meaning that I know that my students need this so that they can improve their like their 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 formal schema. Yeah. They need to understand like the structure of the text and not just like the vocabulary. Of course, the Chameau files is what I base my Kala framework on because like it does come from them. So I also mentioned it in my uh, in my proposal. And however, I do found this really interesting one, which is a file that is suitable with the Vietnamese context from Lợi and Thanh. Oh, this file is actually really suitable for my context because first of all, in Vietnam. Second of all, even though they do this in the limitation part, what I think is really interesting is that um, they conduct us it in a language center and focusing on teenage learners, which is both something that I need that is really like aligns with my own context. But because of that, I found out I thought that this file was going to be immensely useful, but not really, because they talk about their own way of intervention, calling it TDA. However, I do found some of the work that they use is matching with me. Is that first of all, they also do text visualization. I think this is really good. And like inner speech questioning, which is like thinking aloud. And they also prove their effectiveness with Vietnamese students. So I think that is really good. Okay, so yeah, so you have seen my intervention. I want them to do something like this. Yeah. Okay, so I hope that after this they'll be able to like have like improve their formal schema or like maybe have a formal schema in the first place. Yeah, and that is my intervention. Okay, so moving on to methodology, I don't just pull this one out of thin air. This one cost me a lot of reading for a really small uh, body of text. I based all of these parts on Burns, and Creswell. I don't know where this Creswell file comes from. Maybe you send it to me or to the class, but this is a super recent file from 2023, and this one covers a lot of things. This is such a lifesaver of a file. Well, Burns is well, she is more on the action research side, but I think that I use these files a lot. This file a lot. I do a lot of reading. Okay. First of all, talking about data collection and analysis. Okay, I'm sorry. About participants and context, we all know. Like, okay, I'm going to focus on 4 students in secondary, like from like 12 to 14. Yeah. and they are in my IELTS band 5.0 classes. So for the data sources and instruments, I adapt this one from the vendor for you files. When they hear, they do talk about it somewhere. I do have a note down. Okay, here instruments. Yeah, yeah. They administer a TOEFL file, a TOEFL reading test. I'm going to administer my students IELTS passages. And then, yeah, here they administer pre-test, post-test for the same test for the students, and they also say that this should be like an average of 3 weeks separated, and I think this matches my schedule really well because my students only are like together with me for like 3 or 4 weeks. So, and then they also said something I don't know. Okay, here they would not know whether the answer pretest was correct or not. I will also mention this in my research proposal, because I think this is something really new to me. I thought that they were going to be provide the answers, but no, they're not. So I do mention it in my own file. Here students will not be provided with the answer. Yeah, whenever. Yeah. Yeah, for the observation checklist, well, I will just adapt a checklist based on what grouping is and what like imagery is. Like, do students like circle main ideas, or do students highlight ideas, or like do students group uh, parts of sentences that has the same meaning? Like, I was just trying to check if they can do something like this. Okay. When it comes to data collection and analysis, I use the Creswell file. Here, the Creswell file. Just really far. Where is it? Oh, okay. Here. Okay, here. Mixed methods procedures. I decided to go with the mixed method after I read the justifications here. So that it helped me to have a complete understanding of my problem. I think it's really good. And they help me understand like changes that needed for a marginalized group. I believe that this is something like that matters for a small group, I believe. And I do have a small sample size, so that's why I adapted it. Um, Here, my core design here is like convergent design. And convergent, there's this graph that they use here. Okay, I don't like the way that it's being done. No, not this one. There is a graph somewhere. Here. Okay. Convergent, mixed method design. Yeah, I go with this. It's this one, because you need to look at it. So I crop it out, but I'm not usually this dedicated. Never mind. Okay, so from this file, they do something like a okay. I'll pause the video for a little bit so I can edit this picture for you. Okay, so here they said that there's going to be like one phase, two phase, or three phase. I do not believe that my kind of research need two or like three phases, because it's going to cost a lot of resources, I believe, and a lot of time. So that's why I went ahead with the conversion design. Well, it basically means that I like see that they do the collection and analysis for both quantitative and qualitative, merge it, and I think they call it integration, and then interpret it, and then I think this is what they call meta inferences. It took me a little bit to understand what meta inferences is. It's apparently just um conclusions, and I think that it's a whole bunch of jargon for no reason. Well, maybe you can help me with that one, but I think it's just a whole lot of jargons. But okay. Anywho, yeah, that's my analysis. That's my collection, and I also do analysis on the Creswell files. And integration is a joint display table, like showing the statistics with the students' quotes. Also the meta inferences, okay? And there's the ethical considerations. this part took me a lot of time too, because when I look at the Creswell file, he does talk about ethical issues here, but it's a lot of procedures, and it involves, like here, an institutional review board. But I don't think that my center has this kind of review board. Well, he does say that it doesn't. It's like contextual. So I decided to went with Burns because her way of looking at it is much closer to me. Oh, okay. Oh, I just saw it somewhere here. Okay. Because this is an action research, so the scale is quite small. Yeah, she does talk about ethical issues here. I do talk about these things, the permission. Well, my center doesn't really need permission because I'm like they don't really care what I do, so I don't need permission from them. But she does mention something really interesting here. Is that if I work with young children, and she says something about the gay consent form, I did adapt all of these parts that I highlighted into the ethical considerations part here. Students will know that the action research will not do any harm to them. It will benefit them and my teaching. And of course, they are allowed, they are not allowed, sorry, that's not a good word. They are able to withdraw any time that they want. And of course, I actually don't know this until now, is that the data will be protected. And like they use the word, like students will be like coded, like student A, student B. And then I need to be discreet enough so that the students are not being identified like in any way, shape, or form. Okay. The significance of the study is that I think that, well, there is this gap in the Vietnamese context because, like, well, I do look at recent files and I don't really find anything that like matches this, or maybe I don't find it like carefully enough. But I think that my action research will be able to help teachers use this as a model if it proves itself to be effective. However, okay, well, when it comes to feasibility, I think it's quite feasible because, well, it's only for students. It's all the tests, it's papers and pens. So it doesn't really require any like expensive things. Well, it does have limitations because my sample size is extremely small. So I don't really have like what we call like quantifiable or something. I don't really have enough quantitative evidence to like make a pattern for like the entire Vietnamese population. But well, this is just an action research. Of course, it's not like that feasible. Oh, I'm sorry. This part is something I haven't edited that yet. Okay, this should look like this. Here are all my references. I do have problem with this one though. Okay, I'll show you my Zotero. Uh, my Zotero here. Okay, not this, but it's this file. I have to manually input this by hand in order for it to work. And it's a PDF, which is really horrible. But I also found something really interesting is that this file, yeah, this file, when I add in the PDF, it does not show me this metadata. But if I press on generate something like parent item or something, yeah, parent item, yeah, and then they will give me a space for me to input this, and then well, the parent item I just need to put in the ISBN from where is it? Research. Yeah, I still remember like how surprised I was when I see how it works. ISBN, ISBN here. This ISBN, I put it in here, and then it just pops out. It just pops in all the metadata data for me. So yeah, well, in conclusion, that's all I had to say. Um, I hope that you can see like how much effort I put into this, and it really cost me like 3 or 4 days of headaches because the deadline was pushed up really early. I am one of the first people of the class who started this, and you did comment for me for a little bit, and I really appreciate that. And like I thought I was done after all the intervention stuff, but apparently the data collection part cost me 3 days just to read and summarize information, and it's really bad. But I hope that in the end it's all worth it. Thank you for listening.